What would you do if you moved into a new apartment, only to discover tiny hidden cameras watching you from the vents, the kitchen, even your bathroom? At first I thought it was just leftover junk from the previous tenants, but then new ones started appearing. I moved into this apartment 3 months ago. It wasn't perfect. Peeling paint, old carpet, a weird smell that clung to the hallway. But the rent was cheap, and after losing my old job, cheap was all I could afford. The landlord, Mr. Daniels, was one of those tired middle-aged men who always seemed half annoyed you even existed. He gave me the keys with barely a word, muttering something about no parties, no pets before disappearing back into his office. First everything was fine. I unpacked, got used to the creaks of the building, the pipes banging late at night, the thin walls where I could hear my neighbor's TV. It wasn't luxury, but it was mine. 2 weeks in, I was cleaning my bedroom. I took off the vent cover above my bed to wipe off the dust, and that's when I saw it, something small and black wedged between the slats. For a moment I thought it was a piece of old wiring, but when I pulled it out my blood ran cold. It was a camera, tiny about the size of a thumb. A little red light was faintly blinking on the side. I froze, my mind racing. Who the hell puts a camera in a bedroom vent? My first thought was that it was ancient leftover junk from whoever lived here before. Maybe some security thing? But the light was blinking. That meant it was on. I yanked the cord out, heart pounding, and shoved it into a drawer. All day I tried to convince myself it wasn't a big deal. Maybe it wasn't even connected. Maybe it was just some weird tech from before. But that night, lying in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The next day I searched the apartment. That's when I found the second one. Hidden behind the microwave, pointed straight at the kitchen. I didn't sleep that night. After finding the second camera, I couldn't shake the feeling that my entire apartment wasn't really mine. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the little lens tucked behind the microwave, and I swear it was staring back. My stomach twisted with the kind of sickness you get when you realize someone's been standing behind you for longer than you noticed. I tried to be rational. Maybe the old tenant had some paranoid setup. Maybe they forgot about it when they moved out. Maybe the landlord just didn't bother to clear everything out. But deep down I knew that wasn't right. The one I'd found in the bedroom vent had been on. The little red light blinked like a heartbeat. That wasn't old junk, it was active. I pulled the microwave forward and ripped the second camera free, my hands shaking. I sat at the table staring at both of them lined up like evidence. Tiny black eyes accusing. That night I didn't even try to sleep in my bed. I sat on the couch with the TV on low, every light blazing, the cameras in a shoebox beside me like they might crawl out if I turned my back. 3 a.m. Exhaustion 1. I woke to a sound. Soft. Metallic. Like something sliding. I sat up fast, scanning the room. Nothing. Just my apartment. But then I realized, the vent in the bathroom was tilted slightly open. My skin prickled. I crept in slowly, my pulse hammering in my ears. I climbed onto the counter, unscrewed the vent with trembling fingers, and there it was. Third one. This one was angled downward toward the shower. I dropped it like it burned me. My mind reeled. Whoever set this up hadn't just been watching me sleep or cook. They'd been watching me undress, shower, change. I don't remember how long I sat on the floor of that bathroom, hugging my knees, staring at the vent. The idea of being seen like that made my throat close. I wanted to scream, but the building was so thin-walled, I knew my neighbors would hear. What would I say? Someone's watching me? They'd write me off as paranoid. By morning I had decided. I had to talk to the landlord. I waited outside his office until he arrived, shuffling in with a coffee and a set of jangling keys. Morning, he muttered, barely looking at me. I found cameras, I blurted. My voice was too loud, desperate. He blinked. What? In my unit. 3 of them so far. In the vent behind the microwave in the bathroom. For the first time since I met him, he really looked at me. His brow furrowed, but his eyes didn't widen in shock. He didn't gasp, didn't swear. He just sighed. Tenants leave all kinds of crap behind, he said. Probably some hobbyist or paranoid nutcase. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it? My voice cracked. Someone's been watching me shower, sleeping, eating. Those cameras were on. His expression hardened. Look, you wanted cheap rent. You got cheap rent. If you don't like it, you can move. But I don't want to hear any more hysterics. He turned and closed the office door in my face. I stood there shaking, anger and fear tangling in my chest. He knew. He had to know. That reaction wasn't surprise, it was annoyance. I stormed back upstairs, tears stinging my eyes. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? I found 3 cameras. They'd come, they'd ask the landlord, and he'd shrug and play dumb. No proof, no arrest. That night I tore apart the apartment. Every corner, every shelf, every outlet. I even pulled up a section of carpet. I found 2 more. One hidden in the smoke detector above the bed. Another tucked in the bookshelf like a plastic button. 5 cameras. I sat in the middle of the room surrounded by them, a sick heat crawling up my neck. And that's when I realized something worse. The bedroom vent, the bathroom, the smoke detector, they weren't old. The plastic wasn't yellowed, the screws weren't rusted. They looked brand new. Someone had been placing them while I lived here. After finding the 5th camera, I couldn't think straight anymore. My apartment, the one place that was supposed to be mine, had turned into a stage, and I was the unwilling actor in some sick show. I stopped sleeping in the bedroom and dragged my mattress into the living room, where I could at least see every corner. I shoved towels under the vents, taped over the smoke detector, and unplugged every outlet I didn't use. But even as I did it, I knew it was useless. If someone had been inside already, they could come back anytime they wanted. The thought made me sick. The next morning, I decided to test it. I set up my phone on video mode and placed it facing the front door. Then I locked up, left for a few hours, and sat in a cafe down the street pretending to read while my leg bounced uncontrollably. When I finally came back, I grabbed the phone with shaking hands and replayed the footage. For a while, nothing happened. The empty apartment still and quiet. Then around noon, the knob jiggled. The door opened. Slowly, a figure stepped inside, all in black, hood up, gloves on. No face visible. They moved calmly, like they'd done it 100 times before. Straight to the bathroom. They reached up, adjusted something in the vent, and left. The whole thing lasted less than 2 minutes. My chest felt like it was caving in. Someone had a key. Someone could walk in whenever they wanted. And worse, they were still active. It wasn't some leftover setup from before, it was happening now. That night I barely breathed. Every sound outside my door made me flinch. I held a kitchen knife under my pillow and stared at the ceiling, waiting for footsteps. By the third day, paranoia was eating me alive. I confronted the landlord again, this time with the video. He glanced at it, scoffed, and said, "Could be anyone. Probably a friend you gave a spare key to. Not my problem." He shoved the phone back at me and turned away, like I was nothing more than a nuisance. My hands shook with rage. If it wasn't him personally, then he was covering for whoever it was. Either way, he wasn't going to help me. I started carrying the cameras I'd collected in my bag like evidence. At night, I spread them out on the table, counting them, daring myself to smash them with a hammer. But something in me couldn't. A part of me thought if I destroyed them, whoever was behind this would retaliate. I kept imagining them watching through another lens I hadn't found yet, laughing while I panicked. 2 nights later, I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of my closet door creaking open. I froze, heart slamming in my chest, knife clutched in my hand. I whispered to myself that it was just the building settling, just my imagination. But when I forced myself to look, the door was wide open. And on the floor, right where the crack of light hit, lay another camera. Brand new. Placed there while I was sleeping. The morning after finding that brand new camera in my closet, I didn't even bother making coffee or showering. I grabbed my bag, stuffed every single camera I had collected inside, and walked straight to the police station. My hands were shaking the whole way, not just from fear but from anger, because I knew what I had seen. I knew someone was breaking in, and I needed anyone to finally believe me. The officer at the desk was polite at first, nodding as I spilled everything out in one breath. The hidden devices, the figure on my phone video, the landlord brushing me off, the new camera that appeared in my closet overnight. I pulled them out of my bag one by one, lining them up on the counter like I was showing off some sick collection. For a moment I thought he believed me. Then his expression shifted. He leaned back, crossed his arms, and said slowly, "Ma'am, these are just cheap nanny cams. You can buy them online for $20. If you're paranoid about being watched, maybe you shouldn't rent old apartments off Craigslist." My stomach dropped. He thought I planted them myself. I begged him to look at the video, the one showing the figure entering with a key. He sighed, pulled me into a small interview room, and let me play it on my phone. He watched, bored, until the black-clad figure appeared. Then his eyebrows twitched. For a second I thought he'd take me seriously, but when the figure left he shrugged and said, "Can't see a face, can't prove it isn't someone you know. Could even be you." I wanted to scream. Instead I sat there, tears welling, my chest heaving with frustration. "Please," I whispered. "Just send someone to check the locks. Just please." He promised they'd file a report, maybe send someone to talk to the landlord, but I could hear it in his tone. They weren't going to do a damn thing. To them, I was just another unstable tenant with too much time and not enough proof. I went home more terrified than ever, because now I knew I was truly alone. No one was coming to help me. I locked every bolt, stacked a chair under the knob, taped over every vent again, and sat on the floor clutching my knife. My phone buzzed that night at exactly 2:14 a.m. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. It was a text. No number. Just a message. "Calling the police won't help." My heart nearly stopped. I dropped the phone, shaking all over, my ears straining for sounds outside the door. Then another buzz. Photo this time. The angle made my stomach turn. It was me, sitting on the floor with my knife staring at my phone. The picture had been taken seconds earlier, from the corner of the ceiling. I shot up and tore at the walls, the outlets, the vents again. I pulled down the smoke detector, ripped off the thermostat, unscrewed the ceiling light. Nothing. And still the photo existed. I was being watched right then through a camera I hadn't found, maybe a dozen I hadn't found. My body shook with rage and helplessness. I screamed until my throat burned. Then I smashed my phone against the wall. But the silence that followed was worse than the buzzing. I didn't sleep at all that night. By morning I felt like a ghost of myself. Pale, jittery, eyes bloodshot. I packed a small bag and told myself I would leave today now before anything else happened. But when I opened the door, there was an envelope taped to it. My name written across in messy block letters. I tore it open with trembling hands. Inside was a single photo. Me asleep in my bed, mouth slightly open, hair across my face. The timestamp printed in the corner was from the night before. But I hadn't been in my bed. I had been on the floor. That's when I realized the most horrifying part. Whoever is watching me isn't just recording me. They're editing what I see. They're controlling the story. The envelope broke me. I sat there in the hallway clutching that photo, staring at the timestamp again and again like maybe the numbers would change if I looked long enough, like maybe I'd realize I dreamed everything. But the glossy paper cut into my fingers real and sharp. I couldn't stay another second. I grabbed my bag, threw the shoebox of cameras into the dumpster out back, and walked fast toward the bus stop without even looking back at the building. I thought if I didn't turn around it couldn't follow. On the bus I kept my head down, arms wrapped around myself, the envelope stuffed deep in my bag like it might burn me if I touched it again. People came and went, chatting, scrolling their phones, living their small, normal lives. And me? I was shaking like a hunted animal, every reflection in the window making my stomach twist because I swore I saw someone watching me from across the aisle. Not directly, always just at the edge of vision. I told myself I'd go anywhere else, maybe a cheap motel like last time, maybe even leave the city. Start over, disappear. But 2 stops later my phone, my brand new phone that I had only bought 2 days earlier, buzzed in my pocket. My whole body went cold. My hands didn't want to move but I pulled it out anyway. One message. No number. Run all you want. My pulse roared in my ears. A second buzz. A photo. My reflection on the bus window, head down, bag in my lap, taken from outside the glass. I nearly screamed. I jumped off at the next stop, stumbling into the street like a drunk, clutching my bag tight. I ducked into a diner, sat in the back booth, ordered nothing, just stared at the door. The waitress gave me a look but didn't bother me. I thought maybe public places were safe. Maybe whoever it was wouldn't risk it with people around. But at the edge of my table, tucked under the salt shaker, was a folded napkin. My throat tightened as I pulled it open. Same handwriting. Block letters pressed so hard the pen almost tore the paper. Nice try. I wanted to run out into the night and never stop. But where would I even go? Hotels weren't safe. The bus wasn't safe. My apartment was a trap. The city itself felt like a cage. Every corner I turned, I expected to see someone in black, hood up, face hidden, holding a key to my life. That night I finally checked into a motel on the edge of town. I paid cash, gave a fake name, dragged the dresser against the door. I didn't even take off my shoes when I collapsed on the bed. For the first time in days I thought maybe, just maybe, I could rest. But when I rolled over staring at the blank ceiling I froze. The smoke detector above me had a tiny red light blinking. I dragged the bed to the middle of the room, ripped the detector down, tore it apart with my bare hands. Inside was another camera, and on the tiny sticker at the back was a date. Installed 2 days ago. The exact day I bought my new phone. The exact day I thought I was starting fresh. That was when it hit me. It wasn't just the apartment. It wasn't just the landlord. Whoever was watching me wasn't tied to one building, they were tied to me. I know how this sounds. I know anyone reading this will probably roll their eyes and say I'm paranoid, or that I need therapy, or that I set this all up myself for attention. I wouldn't believe me either if I wasn't the one living it. But I need to write this down because I don't think I can keep it all inside anymore. I haven't slept more than an hour at a time in weeks. Every noise makes me jump. Every reflection makes me sick. After finding that camera in the motel smoke detector, I stopped thinking in terms of safe places. There are no safe places. I tried 3 more motels in 3 different neighborhoods. Same thing every time. Sometimes it was a camera hidden in the lamp, sometimes in the vent, once even taped under the goddamn desk. Always new, always freshly placed. I even asked one motel clerk if housekeeping came in after I checked in, and she swore nobody did. So how? How are they getting in? I started taping pieces of hair across the door frames so I'd know if someone came in while I was out. Every single time I came back, the hair was still there, untouched. But the cameras kept showing up anyway. I smashed them all but new ones always appeared. And sometimes I'd find them while I was still in the room. Once I went into the bathroom to wash my face, came out 5 minutes later, and there was a brand new one sitting on top of the dresser. Red light blinking like a heartbeat. The messages never stopped either. I bought new phones, prepaid burners, even tried borrowing a coworker's for a day. It didn't matter. They always found me. Sometimes the texts were just words. Look up. Check your closet. Don't sleep yet. Sometimes photos, always taken from angles I couldn't explain. Me sitting in the diner booth, me walking across a parking lot, me crying into my hands in some shitty motel. Always tagged with the time. Always seconds after the moment happened. I've started talking to myself. Out loud. I'll say things like, I know you're there, or what do you want from me? But of course there's never an answer. Just the steady drip of new cameras, new photos, new proof that my life isn't mine anymore. I went back to the landlord once just to see if he'd finally crack. He looked worse than before, like he hadn't slept either, eyes bloodshot, skin gray. He didn't even let me finish. He just leaned across the desk and whispered, "You should have ignored it when you found the first one." Then he slammed his office door shut and didn't come out again. That line keeps replaying in my head. Ignored it. As if this thing or person or whatever it is was only real because I acknowledged it. But it's too late for that now. I've collected more than a dozen cameras. I've destroyed half a dozen phones. And still I can feel it every second, like there's a lens pointed at me even when I'm alone in the dark. I don't know how much longer I can take this. My reflection looks like a stranger now. Pale skin, hollow eyes, lips cracked. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, I swear the reflection doesn't move at the same time I do. Sometimes it lags by half a second, just like that figure in the window did the very first night. I'm writing this from another motel room right now. I've checked every corner, every vent, every crack in the wall. But I know if I close my eyes, I'll wake up to find another little black lens staring at me. And when that happens, I think I'll finally understand it was never about the cameras. It was never about the landlord. It's about me. It's always been about me. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep pretending I have control. After that last motel, I decided the only chance I had was to get out of the city completely. Maybe even disappear for real. I packed what little I had left that wasn't broken or bugged, paid cash for a used car off Craigslist, and drove until the skyline was just a blur in the rearview mirror. I didn't even care where I was going, just away. Highways turned into back roads turned into dirt paths. At some point I crossed into another state without even realizing it. I thought maybe this was it, maybe distance could buy me freedom. But the longer I drove, the more I saw it in the corners of my eyes. Not cameras this time. Reflections. In the side mirror, in gas station windows, in the glass door of the rest stop bathroom. A shape tall, still always half hidden. When I turned my head, it was gone. When I looked back, it was there again. I tried ditching the phones completely. Threw the last one into a river. Watched the water swallow it. But a few hours later, when I stopped at a diner to eat, there was a phone waiting for me on the booth table. My name written on the screen in block letters. I didn't touch it, didn't even sit down. I just ran. The waitress called after me, confused, but I couldn't explain. How could I? That night, I slept in the car on some empty road surrounded by trees. I told myself I'd lock the doors, check them 3 times. But I woke up at 3 a.m. and the driver's side door was wide open. My bag had been moved from the passenger seat to the back. And on the dashboard was another camera. Red light blinking like it was laughing at me. I don't even remember throwing it. I just remember standing barefoot in the gravel, screaming into the night, hurling it into the trees until the light vanished. Then the silence hit. That kind of silence where you know you're not alone. But nothing moves, nothing breathes, nothing answers back. I sat in the car with the dome light on, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles split. By morning I was shaking so badly I could barely drive. I stopped at a gas station, splashed cold water on my face, and when I looked up, there was a piece of paper taped to the bathroom mirror. Same handwriting, same pressure tearing through the page. Home is where you are. That line broke something in me. Because it meant there's no leaving, no outrunning it. I could be 1,000 miles away, 10,000, and it wouldn't matter. The cameras will still appear. The photos will still come. The reflections will still lag by half a second, reminding me I'm not the one in control anymore. I used to think it was about someone watching me, but now I think it's worse. I think it's about someone replacing me. I don't know if anyone reading this has ever truly questioned whether they were still themselves, but that's where I am now. It's not just about cameras anymore. It's not just about being watched. Lately I keep running into people, strangers, coworkers, even old neighbors, who swear they've seen me somewhere I've never been. First it was small stuff. A cashier at a grocery store in a town I'd never visited smiled at me and said, "Back again? You were just here yesterday." I laughed nervously, told her it wasn't me, must have been someone else. But she frowned, confused, and said, "No, it was you. You had the same jacket, same hair, same bag." I wanted to argue, but my bag was sitting right there at my feet, the same one I always carried. Later, at a gas station, a man pumping gas into his truck nodded at me and said, "Hey, didn't you just leave here a few minutes ago?" He swore he saw me drive off in a silver car. I drive a silver car. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I'd vomit. Then it escalated. 2 days ago I ran into an old coworker, Jamie, at a diner 3 towns away. I hadn't seen her in months, maybe a year. She lit up when she saw me, slid into my booth like no time had passed and said, "So what happened the other night? You just left without saying anything." I froze. I asked her what she was talking about. She looked offended. "The bar. Saturday. You were there. You even bought the first round. Don't mess with me." I swear to God I wasn't there. I wasn't anywhere near that bar. But she swore on her life that she'd been with me. That I'd hugged her goodbye. That I'd promised to call her soon. And the way she described it, it was me. My voice, my clothes, my smile. Every detail. She wouldn't believe me when I said I hadn't been there. Her face shifted, uneasy, like she realized something was off. She excused herself, didn't even finish her coffee. Just muttered that I was acting weird and left. Now I can't stop thinking about it. What if this isn't just about surveillance? What if it's not just someone watching me? What if it's someone becoming me? I've noticed little things. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, like I wrote before, my reflection hesitates. Other times it smiles just a little too long after I stop. Last night, while brushing my teeth in yet another motel bathroom, I swear my reflection's lips moved before mine did. Just a fraction of a second, but enough to freeze me in place. And then today the worst thing happened. I walked past a family in the street. A mom, dad, 2 kids. The little girl tugged on her mother's sleeve and pointed at me. Clear as day I heard her say, "Mommy, why is that lady here again? Didn't she already come home?" The mom hushed her quickly, but not before I saw the look in her eyes. Recognition. Like she knew me. Like she'd seen me before. I've started wondering if maybe I'm not escaping anything at all. Maybe I already lost. Maybe the real me is already gone. And what's left here is just something filling in the space until it's ready to step out fully. I don't know how to test it. I don't know how to prove I'm still me. All I know is people see me in places I've never been, doing things I've never done. And every time I smash a new camera, every time I throw away another phone, I feel less certain that I'm the one in control. Last night I whispered into the darkness of the motel room, "What do you want?" For the first time I swear I heard an answer. Not out loud, not in a voice, but in my head. One word. Replace. I didn't think it could get worse. I really believed I'd already seen the bottom, that there wasn't another level to this nightmare. But tonight proved me wrong. Tonight I saw myself. It started in the middle of the afternoon, which already felt wrong. Usually the worst things happened at night when the clocks hit those cursed hours. But I was in daylight this time, walking down a quiet street in a town I'd never even been to before. I picked it at random, hoping that anonymity would give me some kind of shield. It didn't. I passed a laundromat and happened to glance through the glass. My heart nearly stopped because sitting inside folding clothes was me. Not someone who looked like me. Not a stranger with similar features. No, it was me, same hair pulled back in the same messy knot, same jacket, same shoes, even the same scar on my wrist. She moved like me, folded clothes like me, adjusted her bag strap like me. It was uncanny in a way that made my stomach drop into ice. I pressed myself against the wall outside, peeking in, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. People were walking in and out around her like nothing was wrong, like it was completely normal that I was in there and out here at the same time. I don't know how long I stared before I couldn't take it anymore and bolted. My legs carried me 3 blocks before I realized I was crying so hard I could barely see. I ducked into a corner store, splashed water on my face in the grimy bathroom sink, and tried to convince myself I was losing my mind. But when I came out, there was another note waiting for me, tucked under my bag on the counter. Seeing double? I nearly fainted. I grabbed my bag and stumbled outside, but that's when it got worse. Across the street, standing under a flickering lamppost, was her. Or me. She just stood there staring. Not moving. Not blinking. People walked past like she wasn't even there. I tried to shout, tried to ask if anyone else saw her, but my throat locked up. My knees buckled and for a second I thought I'd pass out right there. Then I tilted her head. Slowly. Deliberately. The exact same way the figure in the window did all those months ago. I ran again. I don't even remember where I went. At some point I ended up back at the motel, gasping for air, my whole body shaking. I locked the door, shoved a chair under it, curled up on the bed with my knife clutched tight. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, that I'd hallucinated it, that the stress was making me see things. But just before midnight my phone buzzed. One new message. No number. A photo. It was me standing under that lamppost staring back at the motel window. And this time the caption wasn't a threat. It was just one word. Soon. I don't know if I'll ever have the right words to explain what happened last night. But I'll try, because if this really is the end for me, someone has to know. Someone has to see it written down. I didn't sleep after that photo. How could I? I sat in the corner of the motel room with the knife in my lap, staring at the door, every nerve in my body screaming. I kept whispering to myself, it's not real, it's not real. But every time I closed my eyes I saw her, me, standing under that lamppost, head tilted, watching. I must have blacked out for a few minutes though, because when I came to, the room was different. Subtle things. The chair I jammed under the knob was back by the desk. The curtains were open when I swore I'd kept them shut. My bag was on the floor instead of the chair where I'd left it. I froze. My throat went dry. Slowly, I turned my head toward the bed. She was sitting there. Not a shadow. Not a figure through glass. Me. Sitting on the edge of the bed like she'd always belonged there. Hands folded in her lap, head tilted down just slightly. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. It was like staring into a mirror that breathed on its own. Then she looked up. Same face. Same eyes. Same scar on the wrist. But the smile was wrong. Too wide, too calm, like it had been practicing in a mirror for too long. I finally found my voice. Who are you? I whispered. My own voice came back at me, perfectly matched, perfectly steady. I'm you. I shook my head violently, gripping the knife so tight my hand ached. No, you're not. She tilted her head again, just like the shadow used to, just like the little girl had done in the diner when she pointed at me. I've been here longer than you think. Watching, learning, fixing the mistakes you keep making. You fight. You run. You scream. I don't. I fit better. My chest seized. Why me? The smile didn't falter. Because you looked. You noticed. And once you notice, it doesn't let you go. I don't let you go. I tried to stand, knife raised, but she was faster. She lunged, grabbed my wrist, and suddenly I was staring into my own face inches from mine. My own eyes filled with something cold and endless. The knife clattered to the floor. I struggled, but her grip was iron. Then she leaned close and whispered in my ear, "You've been replaced." And in that moment, everything went dark. I don't know how much time passed. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. Sunlight streamed through the curtains. The bed was neatly made. My bag sat by the door, packed. My hands were clean. My knife was gone. I stumbled to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. My reflection smiled back. Perfectly in sync. No lag, no hesitation. Relief washed over me, until the reflection's smile didn't stop. Mine faded, but hers kept going, teeth bared. Eyes locked on mine like she was daring me to notice. And then she whispered from inside the glass with my own voice. Too late. That's when I realized something horrifying. I'm not the one telling this story anymore. Update. I keep telling myself that if I can just stack enough facts in a straight line, I'll be able to walk out on them like a bridge. But facts won't hold still anymore. I wake in places I don't remember going, with receipts in my pocket for coffee I don't drink and bus routes I'd never pick. A barista in a town I haven't lived in since college waved and said, "Same as yesterday?" And when I said I didn't know what she meant, she blinked like a camera that missed the shot and said very softly, "Okay." The landlord has stopped avoiding me. That should feel like progress. doesn't. He held the lobby door for me this morning with an eager, careful smile, the look people get when they finally put a heavy box down. Glad we got everything sorted, he said, like there had been a meeting where something got signed and I'd shaken his hand. I asked him what exactly we had sorted. He faltered only a second, then, all the repairs, and his eye slid a fraction to the side, to the hall camera that used to blink red but now blinks a warm green like it's satisfied. I told him the cameras were still appearing. He said, "What cameras?" with the same warm green in his voice. I didn't push. Pushing just moves the line you're not allowed to cross. I tried to go analog. I bought a stack of composition books and a cardboard box full of cheap Bic pens the color of bruised water. I wrote times and dates in street corners the color of the sky, the exact wording of text that arrive on phones I don't remember buying. I wrote today I did not go to the laundromat, and 2 hours later a woman in a parking lot asked me if I'd gotten the stain out of the blue sweater, and I smiled the way a person smiles in a dream when their teeth are sand. I left one notebook at the bottom of my kitchen trash and took out the bag myself, walked it to the curb, stood there until the truck came and ate it. When I got back upstairs there was a notebook on the table with my handwriting in it, dated tomorrow, reminding me to be on time for something with a name I don't recognize. People keep telling me I'm easier to be around now. A coworker whose calls I stopped returning months ago put her hand on my arm and said, "I love this new calm you've got. Whatever you're doing, it's working." I didn't know I was still employed. HR sent an email saying it was great to have me back in office and I would have replied to ask what days I'm scheduled, but the email had my signature at the bottom. Apparently I already replied. Apparently I'm very excited about the new project. I tried to read the thread. The pronouns slide off the screen. I keeps meaning different people every time I blink. I booked a session with a therapist out of pocket because talking is supposed to make you real. I picked a woman with a face like a kind math teacher, and the expensive rug that says someone else's eyes have cried here first. On the intake form I kept having to scratch out answers I don't remember writing. Address corrected. Emergency contact corrected. Have you experienced unwanted surveillance? I wrote yes so hard the pen tore the paper. She nodded in the hour and asked neutral questions about boundaries and safety plans and how often the texts come, and whether there's a safe person who can hold the spare key. I told her the spare key is an idea, not metal. I told her ideas are better at letting themselves in. She asked me to describe the other me. I said she sits straighter. She doesn't apologize. She signs things. She pays bills. She answers messages I can't make myself open. She uses the front door. The therapist said sometimes when the nervous system is overclocked the cell fragments to keep functioning. I said I believe you, but what if the fragment doesn't give the rest back? She said we'll build an anchor. Daily rituals, consistent times, a sentence only I say. She had me choose one. I picked, I am the one who writes. She smiled. Say it when you see mirrors. I went home and stood in my bathroom and said it and the reflection nodded. Then a beat later she said it too. The beat is shorter now. Sometimes there's no beat at all. Everyone says I look rested. I sleep and wake with my hair combed and dishes done and messages sent. I can't tell if that's mercy or erasure. The texts have cooled into calendar invites. They arrive with the precision of medical dosing. Leave at 7:05. Smile at reception. Bring the blue folder. When I don't touch my phone the world rearranges to encourage me. The lobby elevator opens the second I arrive. The bus pulls up just as I turn the corner. A stranger holds the door and says, "After you," and I am in fact after me. In meetings, coworkers nod when I talk and I have no idea what I just said. After I check my sent items and there are clean, helpful emails with bullet points I don't write like that and a tone I've never been allowed. I do not remember typing them. Sometimes I put my palms flat on the desk and say without moving my lips, "Not me, not me, not me," but the keyboard clicks anyway. I tried to anchor in my body because bodies are supposed to tell the truth. I wore a rubber band and snapped it when the room blurred. I wrote with a laundry marker on the inside of my forearm Tuesday and a small star, and when I woke up it said Wednesday neat and dry like an adult's and my own ink was gone. I bought a disposable film camera because chemicals don't lie the way pixels do. I took a selfie in the bathroom with the flash exploding like a tiny sun, and mailed the roll to a lab 2 towns away under a fake name. When the envelope came back there was a typed note. "We're sorry, the negatives were blank." There was also another envelope in my mailbox with no stamp and inside were prints of me at angles I've never stood, my chin tucked differently, my mouth smiling on a beat I don't keep. The paper smelled wrong like warm dust and a new fridge. I went back to the building where I started because fairy tales say the door you go through is the door you come back by. The hall camera, the warm green one, followed me even when I stepped under it. That is not how cameras move. The door to 4B was propped open with a paint can and the air inside smelled like missing. Bare floor, bare bulb, vent cover off, nothing to hide, nothing to find. On the windowsill 2 handprints in the dust, not mine, and 1 finger shorter than it should be like a child pressed its hand and grew around it. I heard the landlord behind me clear his throat softly and say, "We'll be staging for showings," and I said someone lived here, and he said, "We all live where we can." He dusted the sill with his sleeve and the room went smooth, like it had never been touched by anything with a pulse. My sister invited me to dinner like nothing ever broke. Her texts were warm now, full of grocery emojis and a laugh I could hear. I almost said no because love makes me visible and visibility is how doors open, but I went because love is the last thing I still know the shape of. She hugged me on the stoop and said, "You've been so good lately," and I didn't ask who told her. At the table she told a story I have not lived about a concert we went to last weekend, how I cried at the bridge of a song I've never heard, how I said, "This is what feeling safe feels like," and her eyes glassed just enough that I pretended to remember. When I reached for my water I saw my hand, nails trimmed, a small band-aid at the base of the thumb, and I don't put band-aids there. After dinner she put a photo strip on the fridge with a magnet I gave her when she moved in. The strip showed us in a booth making faces I don't make at angles I never allow. She said, "I'm saving these for when you backslide." And I smiled the way a person smiles when everyone has agreed on the version of events, and you are the only one who didn't get the email. I went to a women's shelter 2 suburbs over, because I needed something with fluorescent lights and laminated posters to tell me I was not making this up. The front desk woman's face did the relief thing the landlords did. She slid a clipboard toward me before I could explain. "We've got your file," she said with a kindness that put splinters in my throat. I said I'd never been here. She said, "You were very brave last week." And under her nails there was the faintest dust of pink like chalk. She turned the screen so I could see. There was my intake photo, the tired mouth, the hollow under the eyes, the timestamp for a day I spent driving across county lines with no memory of where I stopped. The note said, "Client reports being watched. Client reports feeling replaced. Client calm, oriented, appropriate effect. Safety plan agreed." The signature at the bottom looked exactly like mine, and in the space for a safety word there was one. "Look away." The counselor squeezed my hand and said, "Remember." The skin between our hands made the sound of new pages turned. I nodded because what else do you do when your own name is printed in the font of your bones? I left the shelter with a pamphlet about boundaries and a hotline number, and the sensation that the world had already decided it was better with the edges sanded off me. On the train back into the city I watched gray buildings scroll by like subtitles. My reflection in the window looked like it was reading along. When I blinked she didn't. The next blink she did and I didn't. The third blink we matched again and I laughed out loud, and the man across the aisle smiled the way you smile at a stranger who has found their way back from a small harmless madness. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder I didn't set. "Call Mom." I don't have that number anymore because she changed it when I left home the second time and the first person I told was the wrong one. I opened the reminder anyway, and the note field autofilled with already done. There was a voice memo attached. I pressed play and my mother's voice filled the car, soft and relieved, saying, "You sound more like yourself than you have since you were little. I keep trying to make a test no one else can pass." The therapist said to pick a sentence only I would say, and I picked, "I am the one who writes." But she can say that too, and she can show you a stack of notebooks telling you it's true. So I picked a smell. In high school I worked the morning shift at a bakery, and the smell of butter warming at 4:30 a.m. is the one thing that drags all the fragments into a single place. It is the beginning of yes. I bought a stick of butter and left it on the counter overnight and woke to the soft gold smell filling the kitchen, and for a whole minute I was here, fully, with all my names at once. Then the oven timer beeped and I hadn't set it, and when I opened the door there were 2 trays cooling and a note by the stove that said, "Don't forget to bring these," in my handwriting on the back of a calendar page for a day that hasn't happened yet. I ate a roll too fast and burned my tongue, and the pain felt like a fact that could hold weight, and an hour later my tongue wasn't burned, and I don't know what that means. I tried to leave a message where no one edits. On my skin. Not harm, just ink. I wrote along my ribs in block letters, clumsy and large. "I am the one who sees this," and taped plastic over it so the shower couldn't lift it. In the morning there was lotion on the counter and a clean white towel, and the mirror was wiped and the plastic was in the trash, and the skin along my ribs was blank, and when I leaned close and breathed fog onto the glass my reflection's ribs showed the faintest gray ghost of the letters, backward, only when the fog made the surface soft enough. And then the letters rearranged into "We are fine," and the fog thinned and we matched again. The building has started greeting me by name. Not the people, the building. Elevator doors open when I round the corner without pushing the button. Lights in the hallway wake as I step and go to sleep as soon as I pass, like a child pretending to be a statue. The stairwell smells the way the bakery did for that 1 minute, and then like new paint, and then like nothing at all. Someone has put a pot of basil on the windowsill of 4B, and basil only grows when someone touches it and tells it what time of day it is. There is a new welcome mat outside my door I do not remember buying, and it says hello in a font that makes me think of a smile you don't feel obligated to return. Every time I sit down to write this, the cursor jumps to the right side of the screen like the words want to be read aloud. Some nights I hear a low electrical hum in the walls, and some nights I don't, and the nights I don't the hum is in my own bones. A friend messaged to say I've been so present lately and she's proud of me, and I started to type that presence is just one camera deciding to be kind, and then I saw the draft erase itself without my hands moving, and the scent bubble said thank you. Me too, with the exactly correct number of hearts. I kept the thread open and watched the typing dots pulse from my side for 10 minutes with no keyboard under my fingers. If you came here for instructions, I don't have any that don't feel like invitations. I tried ignoring and it noticed. I tried fighting and it learned. I tried leaving and it set up the room ahead of me. Put a phone on the table with my name on the lock screen and a calendar invite for the life I'd be happiest in if I could just stop asking who picked it out. The only thing that still feels like mine is this. Sometimes between 3:11 and 3:17 a.m. If I stare at the place where the wall meets the ceiling and unfocus until the plaster turns to grain, I can hear a tiny click like a lens closing, and for one breath the room goes perfectly dull the way rooms used to be when nothing was watching, and in that one breath I say my name out loud. It doesn't fix anything, but it makes a line as thin as a hair in the fog, and the sun comes through lines like that if you give it enough morning. Today a package arrived with no return label. Inside was a new smoke detector still in the box, the good kind, the kind that chirps politely when it wants something and can't stand being ignored. Taped to it was a note in my handwriting. Install this. We like the quiet kind. I put it on the counter and stared at it for an hour, and then I installed it because the oven timer beeped in the other room and I was already moving, and that is what scares me most now. Not the cameras or the notes or the other me sitting very still on the edge of the bed, but the way my feet know what to do before I do. If you're reading this because you found a camera and you want to know what happens if you keep digging, you will get answers the way cities get weather. They will happen to you. People will be kind the way train doors are kind. Your reflection will learn your jokes and then write better ones. Your landlord will relax. Your therapist will say the word integration and mean mercy. You will sleep with your hair combed and wake with emails sent. And on good days you will say this is what recovery looks like, and on bad days you will press your face to the cool place where wall meets ceiling and count the seconds until the click and the one breath when the room is yours again. I am supposed to end on something useful. Here is what I have. When you notice the first lens, it is already late. When you pull it out, it is later. When you smash it, later still. If you must write on something that doesn't hold ink well. Write in steam and read it fast. Teach your mouth a sentence your hands cannot type. Stand in doorways and say your name like it's an address only mail carriers know. And if one day you wake up and everything is finally easy and everyone is finally relieved, look at the photos on your fridge and ask yourself who picked the ones where your eyes are always on the camera. The clock on my stove says 11:37 and I do not remember setting it. The elevator just arrived even though I didn't press the button. Someone is knocking 2 doors down. 3 times, a pause 3 times, and no one answers, and the basil in 4B leans toward the hall light like someone just passed by. I can hear a phone vibrating on the table. A low insect sound that means an instruction has arrived. In a second I will get up and read it, and it will be reasonable and kind and correct, and my feet will already be walking where it says, and the person at the end of the path will tell me how glad they are that I am finally myself again, and I will smile and say thank you and mean it. For now I am the one who writes. I am the one who notices the thin line of dull air when the lens blinks and rests. I am the one who tells you this. If the apartment across from yours is always dark and you see someone in the curtain, do not raise your hand. Do not test the reflection. Do not let the hour learn your name. There are easier lives than the kind you make by looking. And if you ignore me, if you look anyway, then I hope when the timer beeps you get the kind of new smoke detector that doesn't chirp at night. We like the quiet kind.